Let's have some MikroTik scripting practice. Record hotspot usage. MikroTik scripting practice. Record hotspot usage. So we have more on this later on what is really the purpose of this script. However, before I proceed with the demonstration, let me have some few disclaimers to make. I am not claiming to be a scripting expert, and please test the script before using it on production. For demonstration conditions, the MikroTik hotspot is pre-configured and we are using GNS3 appliance for testing. For our demonstration in this MikroTik scripting practice, I am using GNS3 with the following version. I have some few appliances here that are connected. So I have here a MikroTik CHR appliance with the following CHR image. I have some few clients here, PC1, PC2, and PC3. So this is a Linux TinyCore appliance with a Firefox browser application installed. Just nice for us to test our hotspot in this particular router. On my left, I have another appliance which is actually connected to my physical machine's loopback interface. So the purpose of this is my physical machine's MikroTik Winbox be able to connect to this MikroTik router in order to view and configure the hotspot settings and the script settings later. Okay, I have powered up the MikroTik CHR appliance. Let's head to IP hotspot and see the pre-configured hotspot. So we have the hotspot server on the bridge interface with the following profile. So hsprof1. So with the hotspot address 192.168.200.1 with the fictitious DNS name, with the HTML directory. So we go to users. So I have 3 users, user 1, user 2, user 3. User profiles, I don't have any. So active, no one is connected yet to the hotspot host. So there is no one in the hotspot yet. Okay, so the hotspot more or less is pre-configured. Let's head over to PC1, which is a Linux TinyCore appliance. So let's go to the terminal. Let's perform if config or type in if config command. So as you can see, we are getting the 192.168.200.254. We are in the same network as the hotspot server. Let's do a ping to the hotspot address, and we cannot ping the hotspot server. So of course we are not yet authenticated to the hotspot service. So this might be the reason why. As we go back to the hotspot configuration or hotspot host on MikroTik, so we can see that our IP of that Linux TinyCore is being reflected on the host. However, it's not on the active part because again, we haven't authenticated yet. Before we dive deeper in this MikroTik hotspot or scripting practice demonstration, so let me provide you the background of the problem or the description of the problem. So I have some users here, user 1, user 2, user 3 in my hotspot server. User 1 has the following credential, user 1 and password 1234. It has a configured limit. Limit uptime is 1 hour, so it can use the hotspot service in the period of just an hour. Then we head over to our tiny core appliance and open the Firefox browser in order to reach the hotspot login page. So 192.168.200.1. As you can see, I'm using the default MikroTik hotspot page. Let's try to log in. So user 1 and password 1234. So as you can see, the ping is now responding. We are able to connect to our hotspot IP address. Let's head over to our MikroTik. So there is now an AH or authorized for this particular machine, and it's on the active table. So I have an hour of uptime, and on the active table you could see that I am connected 36 seconds or 37 seconds on my hotspot service. So there is no problem when there is no interruption of power or there is no loss of power. So if I will to be able to log off or disconnect to that hotspot on my PC1 machine, this uptime will now be reflected to this user uptime here. So as you can see, the uptime is 00 here because this active uptime will only be reflected to the user when the user log off or disconnect, for example. So this active uptime is in memory. So as you can imagine, if we have a loss of power, this uptime will be gone. I don't mind losing 1 minute to 2 minutes or few minutes for my hotspot service. What if you imagine if this user is on a 50-minute uptime already and suddenly your MikroTik lose power? So when it loses power, the uptime count here will never be reflected on this uptime, and the MikroTik assumes when it goes back with a power or power on, it assumes that you are never connected really to the MikroTik hotspot service and assume that you still have an hour left again. Okay, so that is the background of the problem of what we are trying to provide here with a script. Okay guys, let me be clear first. I am not saying that what we will about to do, which is scripting, will be the best solution for this problem. Of course, it is not. The best solution is always to provide a backup of power for your MikroTik device or for any device of that matter. So of course, if you're running an hotspot business, you must have an uninterruptible power supply on your MikroTik hotspot device. So you need to purchase UPS, you need to provide battery or other systems such as solar. So this script is not the best solution for this particular problem. I hope I am clear with this. So if you're clear about that, let's head over to the makeup of this MikroTik scripting practice. So if we head over to system scripts, so I have a MikroTik hotspot usage script, and if you try to open, it has some entry on the source files. So don't worry, we will view the hotspot usage script a bit later. So there is a script in under system scripts. So you might be seeing one temporary user one here. More on this later. On system scheduler, so this particular record hotspot usage schedule is there to call the record hotspot usage. So of course for scheduler it has start date, it has start time, and it has interval on the schedule. So I can set here as 30 seconds, I can set 1 minute, 5 minutes, or more so we can set it as 1 second to really see the script in play. So I have a scheduler that will call the record hotspot usage script, and that will provide our solution, hopefully, for our problem. Before we go to the actual script later, let me provide you with a brief idea of what that script does. So you head over back to the hotspot active table. As you can see, this user one is still connected with an uptime of 17 minutes. So the session left from an hour, you have now roughly 42 minutes and 20 plus seconds. So this active uptime is still there. However, like I said in a while ago, the uptime will never be reflected here until the user reaches its uptime or log off or disconnected. So what the script will do is record this uptime, this 17 minutes uptime, to a temporarily file, which is in this particular scenario, it's not a file, but is on a script. So what we are trying to do is save that particular uptime information to a non-volatile entry here on our MikroTik. And for this case, I was thinking of putting a script. Okay, so you could put it somewhere else, but in this example is creating a temporary script, user 1. So if you go to user 1, as you can see, it is recording the uptime 7 minutes 11 seconds. So as you can see, why is the uptime is not the equal value of the active uptime? Because the scheduler is in a while ago was actually set 30 seconds. So if we can make a certain change of interval and make it 1 second, we will see the changes on the hotspot time here on the script, or the hotspot active uptime here on the script, temporary script, and we will try to do it in a while. I have logged off the PC1 user. So if we go to IP hotspot, so the user 1, I've also reset the counters, so you could not see anymore that is in the active table, but the PC1 is still in the network. So I have also removed some cookies. So on the hotspot user 1, I have changed the uptime this time to 1 minute. Okay, so let's head over to the scripts. So the script record hotspot usage is still there. This script scheduler, this one is purposely being disabled. So if we go inside, start date is January 6, start time and the interval is 30 seconds. So for a quick check, you might need to make sure your clock is in sync. For example, your clock should not be 2020 or another year, and your start date is in a different year. So of course the script or the schedule will not run. So let's have a shorter interval this time. So if you want to really record each second, is we interval to 1 second. Now we will go on to schedule, enable, and run count is 3. However, the run count is running, but there's still no activity yet on these what we call scripts, okay, because the user is not connected, or the hotspot user is not connected. So let's go over to our client 1 and log in. User 1 and 1 2 3 4 for the password. Alright, let's check on what happens. So the system scripts now records the user 1, and if you could see, it will record the uptime. So now you see the changes. So each second it records the uptime on the active uptime here. So the active uptime will be stored on this temporary script. So in the event of a power failure, there is now a temporary repository of the uptime, and this uptime, if you will take a look at the IP hotspot user profile, user settings, you will see that the limit of time will also be changed or counting down. It's not as static anymore. Okay? So here you go, the record hotspot usage.rsc, or script for the MikroTik router OS. Okay, so first few lines are just comments. So here are some declarations of variables. So active uptime is actually the uptime for the IP hotspot active uptime. So it will store the uptime to this variable, as well as the limit uptime, the user. The use time is the one that is being stored on the script source, the value. So it is the use time for the particular user hotspot connection. You have also the use uptime, which is the hotspot user uptime when the user actually logs off or exits or disconnect its hotspot connection. Next is a cleanup section. So we will be cleaning up when the user is not in the IP hotspot active anymore. So we don't need the script or the temporary script because the user is obviously not in the active hotspot table. So it will do a for each looping statement. Then it will see if the user is not anymore in the active hotspot table. So when the user is not anymore in the active hotspot table, it will perform a removal. But there are some if statement or some conditional statement that when the user has a use uptime, okay, so kindly perform this changes on the limit uptime. So your original limit minus the use uptime and the use time, the one that is being inside. So of course we don't want a double deduction of our time. So that's why there is still this enclosed before it's being deducted on the HS limit. Then after that, so finally it will remove the script or temporary script for that particular user. So now we begin the meat of the script. So if there are active connections already, so when the print count is more than 0, so obviously there are active users, it will now go through the following commands. So please store the active uptime for that user. Please store the HS user. Please store the HS limit from its corresponding values. Now it will proceed to check if there is a matching script. So in the very first run, actually it will not match here on the first if statement, because this statement is checking if the user has already a script name. So it will go to the else. So the first looping statement will go to the else, wherein there is no script for that user. So please add a temporary script, record that active uptime, and set the use time variable and deduct the limit uptime from that use time. So for the second script intervals, remember we have a scheduler, it will run per interval. So the first interval will go to the else statement since there is no matching script name for that user. But on the next interval, it will now match this statement because there is already a script for that user. When it matches this condition, so it will perform the following statement. So from here to here, actually, okay, so to this one. Then what the first statement will do is please store what's inside the source to this variable HS use time, because we will make use of that to a formula. Next is another conditional statement. If the active uptime is greater than the use time, which is most likely be our use time is lesser than the active uptime. Next is if the limit is greater than 1. So remember, we don't want our limit to reach 0, 0, 0, or it becomes an infinity and becomes a problem. So we're trying to limit it when it reaches to 1, so we can perform some operation. So if the limit is still greater than 1, please perform a deduction on our limit uptime. So remember, the limit uptime will be running down or counting down. However, if the limit is equal to 1, okay, close to 0, okay, so please perform the following. So this is just a temporary solution wherein we put a limit uptime to 0001, but we are actually doing a disabling of the user, okay, hotspot user, and commenting it out that you don't have more time, removing the cookies for that particular user, removing that user from the active uptime, and finally removing the script for that particular user to avoid any other conflicts on the value of this script. Let's have one more run before we end this demonstration. So this user 1 has a 15 seconds uptime. So this user 1 is not yet authenticated or active. This PC1 is still in the network. There is no cookies. There is no script name for that particular user. So we go to the user and type in its credentials, so to log in. So it will do a login, 15 seconds. So the user is supposed to be having a script name and the use time is running. Let's take a look if, okay, the user don't have no more uptime and it's disabled and it's not anymore in the active connection. The cookies is gone, and if you take a look at the PC, the user, if it tries to re-log in, cannot log in anymore because it's disabled. There's one more. So I would like to run all the PC clients. So user 1 has 10 minutes, user 2 has 20 minutes, user 3 has 30 minutes. There is no script name for those users, so let's try one by one connect them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and there is a script name for that user. So let's connect on the second one, user 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there is a script name for that user. Okay, finally PC3, 192.168.200.1, then user 3.1234, and there is a script name for that user as well. As you can see, the source is increasing. As you can see also, the uptime is counting down for these users. And obviously, if we have a blackout scenario, so no need to worry, when the power comes back, the limit uptime will not start from the 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but it starts when the last uptime is recorded. The limit uptime was recorded. For in this case, it's 8 minutes. For the user 3, it's 29 minutes. For user 2, it's 18 minutes. So in this video, MikroTik Scripting practice, record hotspot usage. So for demonstration purposes, we have used GNS3 appliances for testing. We have CHR appliance for our MikroTik, the cloud-hosted router, as well as Linux Tiny Core with Firefox appliance for our clients. We have our MikroTik hotspot pre-configured. So we have some few users already with its settings configured, limit uptime, username, and password. So we have tested the hotspot connection from one of its users. By then, we have established the background of the problem, or the problem that we are trying to solve, which is when there is a user, for example, with the limit uptime of 1 hour, and he or she is connected for, let's say, 40 to 50 minutes, and suddenly there is a loss of power on our MikroTik. The active uptime is actually not stored on our MikroTik. So therefore, when the MikroTik reboots, or MikroTik will have some power, it assumes that the user has not connected, or there is no uptime yet for that particular user. So I've shared to you the script. So we walk through the contents of the script, or the makeup of the script, the variables, the if conditions, the looping statements, as well as, or most especially, the logic behind the conditions or the looping statements of the script. So if you find the script not optimal, or you have some better solutions, so forgive me, I'm not a scripting expert. As what I've told in the earlier stages of this video, I am not a scripting expert, and I'm trying just to help for this particular problem, and also a scripting practice. So the script is still in beta, more testing and bug discovering to come, and hopefully we'll have some better solutions or better script for this in the future. However, like I told you in this video, the best solution for this problem is simply to buy an uninterruptible power supply or a backup power, so that we will avoid using scripts or programming on MikroTik. So I hope you find the video about MikroTik scripting practice helpful. We have more to come on these videos, and I would like to thank you for watching.